Cory Booker pens Pam Bondi down. Will the next Attorney General keep limits on chokeholds and no-knock raids, or lift a policy born from outrage and reform? This exchange tells you more about power, policing, and the fragile trust between citizens and the Justice Department.
Senator Booker.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the time. Ms. Bondi, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
And thank you for being willing to meet with me in my office. I really value that time that we had together. If there's anything that's been demonstrated in this hearing thus far, is there is a serious crisis of faith in our judicial system in America. And we are at a time where, as Judge Learned Hand reminded us in his writings and speeches, that the power of the Constitution is only strong as long as it is believed in and had faith by the American people. And that faith is shaken by so much of the political tumult. And as we have a new administration coming in and a lot of the protestations about retribution or going after political opponents, I know you could expand your empathy enough to understand why there are many that really worry about your independence. But I've heard you over and over again in this hearing, as much as I've tried to focus on it as I've gone back and forth between Senate Foreign Relations and another Floridian, Marco Rubio. But I am hearing from you that you understand that the Attorney General's guiding star is the U.S. Constitution and her client is the American people, that there can be no argument about that.
Yes, Senator.
Yes. And more than that, though, I hope that you, should you be confirmed, understand that there is an urgency in not just demonstrating through your actions that independence, but beginning to heal this country's lack of faith and shaken faith in that independence, in the U.S. Constitution. History may not long remember what any of us individually do here, but for the sake of our democracy, what you do to restore and repair the American faith, whether they be Democrats, Independents, or Republicans, is vital. I want to switch here to say publicly that when Donald Trump appointed Craig Carpenito as the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, it was over the objections of myself and then Senator Menendez. I was wrong in my anticipation that he would not do good things in our state. He partnered with local leaders like those in Newark, New Jersey, to dramatically drive down crime. He was good for the safety of the city in which I live and the one that I led. Part of his strategy was to focus his resources on the most violent criminals. But that also meant that he used something that you know of called prosecutorial discretion. His strategies aligned with that of local leaders and was able to create historic drops in our murder rate. You know, through your experience, and you're intimately familiar, that enforcement decisions prosecutors must make every day, which charge to bring, which plea deal to offer, or what sentencing recommendation it makes, it's very important that local prosecutors understand that. Given this enormous discretion our legal system gives them, that they are best determined to make decisions about public safety. I'm very concerned that many people are starting to call for a time in our country where the Department of Justice should prosecute state and local prosecutors who exercise that prosecutorial discretion. As Attorney General, will you commit to respecting the autonomy of state and local prosecutors?
Senator, we have to work together with state and local prosecutors. That's what I did my entire career. And if confirmed as Attorney General, I will continue to do that. They serve a vital function in our justice system.
And you understand, like in my state, that sometimes they will decide not to go after certain low-level offenses in order to use their scarce resources to focus on the strategy of pursuing more dangerous people.
Yes, Senator, I completely understand that.
And those decisions shouldn't be politicized if they're part of a larger public safety strategy.
No, Senator. When I was a state prosecutor, we used to sit down with the U.S. attorneys and talk about cases and work together. And that's what I'm discussing about bringing back the cooperation between state and local
Thank you, Ms.
governments.
Bondi. I just want to continue. One of the most stunning hypocrisies I've found since I've been down here in Washington is every politician gives lip service to driving down gun violence. but the very federal authority, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm, that is primarily focused on enforcing America's gun laws and keeping people safe, is hamstrung by federal leaders. The ATF's core responsibility is assisting in local law enforcement. When I was a mayor, I detailed local law enforcement to the ATF, but I'm stunned at how they have been stripped of resources, of their budget, and all of their capabilities to go after illegal gun running. When I was mayor of the city of Newark, we couldn't find one gun crime that was done with a legally purchased gun. But when I turned to the ATF leader at that time told me in private, we don't have the resources, support, or legal ability to go after these crimes. I am concerned about our ability to fight gun crime in America that threatens our law enforcement officers as well as people in communities from red counties to blue cities. Will you commit to doing everything you can to making sure the ATF has its resources and the legal power to pursue illegal gun runners in our country?
Senator, I will do everything in my power to prevent illegal gun runners in our country. When I left being a state prosecutor to run for Attorney General, I almost didn't run because I was working on a wire case involving illegal gun runners.
The DOJ issued in 2022 a use of force policy for its federal law enforcement officers. It was approved by the heads of the DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and ATF, and many of them said it is actually a use of force policy that actually protects law enforcement officers as well as protects others from having their rights violated. It was also endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police and NAPO, the National Association of Police Organizations. This policy is considered best practices in law enforcement. Will you commit to continuing this policy?
Senator, I have not read the policy. I will review the policy, and I will report back directly to you if I am confirmed as Attorney General, and consult with law enforcement. Absolutely.
And I would appreciate if you looked at the policy and I submit questions for the record, hoping that you can elucidate maybe more of your thoughts on this.
Certainly.
And then I will also say, as my last question, because I see my time has run out and I look forward to a second round, the DOJ issued a policy regarding chokeholds, which limited the use of no-knock warrants and chokeholds. It's worth noting that Florida has outlawed no-knock entries altogether since 1994. Would you commit to continuing the 2021 DOJ policy on these issues?
I'm familiar with the policy. I have not read it. I'm committed to reading it and studying it and reporting back to you on that policy once again.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, welcome. Congratulations.
Senator Cory Booker's questioning of Pam Bondi was not a theatrical gotcha. It was a sober demand for clarity about how the Justice Department will treat the tools of policing that most often break community trust, chokeholds, and no-knock entries. He framed his line of questioning around two linked problems: the technical legal limits on force and the political problem of whether a DOJ led by a partisan ally will enforce those limits or roll them back. That's important because a department that changes its posture on use of force rules doesn't just affect federal agents, it sets norms that cascade to local police and shapes what communities can expect when an officer shows up at their door. Bondi's answers were careful and at times non-committal. She repeatedly promised to review the existing 2021 DOJ policy and said she would report back if confirmed. On one level, that's the standard confirmation hearing language of prudence. On another level, it's a political dodge, an answer that keeps options open while avoiding a public pledge to preserve policies that have become touchstones for police reform advocates. For viewers trying to read what this means in practice, "we'll review and report back" often becomes "we changed it quietly." The history of DOJ rule adjustments shows how incremental phrasing at a hearing can presage big shifts once formal authority is in hand. A bit of legal context helps the clip land. After the national protests of 2020, the department issued guidance in 2021 limiting chokeholds and restricting the use of high-risk no-knock entries by DOJ law enforcement, a formal recognition that certain tactics are both dangerous and corrosive to public confidence. Separately, states vary. Florida has long disfavored no-knock warrants following a 1994 state Supreme Court ruling that found no statutory authorization for them. So when Booker notes Florida's ban, he's pointing to a legal precedent that contrasts with federal discretion, and asking whether the federal standard will align with the state law that has already rejected these raids. That contrast is more than courtroom trivia. It's a snapshot of federalism and who gets to set the safety baseline for people in their homes. Booker also tied the chokehold no-knock question to the broader problem of faith in the justice system. That's not rhetorical flourish, it's empirical. When communities feel the DOJ or local prosecutors pick and choose enforcement for political ends, civic faith erodes and cooperation with police collapses, which in turn worsens public safety outcomes. That's why his line about prosecutorial discretion and the autonomy of local prosecutors matters. It's a warning that people are watching whether the DOJ will be an impartial arbiter or a partisan hammer. Bondi said she valued cooperation with state and local prosecutors and would respect their autonomy. A reassuring statement on paper, but one that must be tested against staffing, policy priorities, and real-world directives from the Attorney General's office. There's also a harder operational question Booker raised about the ATF and resources to fight illegal gun running. The point here is structural. Policy statements on chokeholds and no-knock raids are meaningful, but they operate inside an institution defined by budgets, personnel, and interagency relationships. If the DOJ deprioritizes civil rights enforcement or strips resources from specialized units like the ATF, then keeping a policy on paper won't translate into safer streets. Bondi promised to do everything in her power to address illegal gun running, but similarly to her comments on chokehold policy, the proof will be in budgetary choices and prosecutorial priorities. So what should viewers take away from this exchange? First, words at a hearing matter, but they are only the first filter. Watch for whether Bondi issues a clear public pledge to preserve the 2021 chokehold no-knock guidance. If she does not, expect incremental regulatory or interpretive changes rather than an abrupt repeal. Second, keep an eye on staffing and budgets. Real policy lives in enforcement choices, not slogans. Third, understand the political signal. When an Attorney General nominee refuses to affirm independent enforcement against political interference, it's a red flag for anyone worried about the rule of law. Those are the stakes behind this moment, which is why Booker pressed so directly. If you want deeper reporting after this, watch for the questions for the record, those written exchanges after the hearing, any formal memos Bondi circulates to DOJ components, and congressional oversight letters demanding documents or clarifications. Those documents reveal how policy talk at a hearing turns into memos that departments must follow. I'll keep tracking those threads and break down the most consequential memos and receipts because democracy is made up of these bureaucratic moments that decide how power is actually used. If you found this explanation helpful, subscribe to Left Lens for weekly deep dives that unpack what's really at stake when power meets policy. Like, share, and turn on notifications so we can keep holding leaders accountable, together.